So now we're going to look at the other side of demand and supply, which is supply. And I don't have a funny cartoon for this section, just picture of a supermarket shelf with lots of soup, lots of high supply of soup. Okay, so these are specification objectives and we'll just work through them. So very important to know your definitions. This is the kind of definition that you can just slip into a 10-mark question, and at least you know you're going to get some knowledge points for this type of thing. Not many marks, but some marks in case you have a big panic. And it's the quantity of product that producers are able and willing, again that phrase appearing again like it did in the definition for demand. So it's quantity of product that producers are able and willing to provide at various prices over a period of time. And it's important to look at when we're looking at supply, the objectives of firms. Now we are going to do a little bit more detail about this when we look at firms' objectives generally, but the main objective of firms is profit. And there can be others, and we will, as I said before, look at these. So we might look at increasing market share, revenue maximization, growth as a firm. Really, all of these things tend to be concentrated around making profit the reward. You may also have more community goals, corporate social responsibility, those types of things as well. And in social enterprises, which are organisations that are very much like businesses and run like businesses, but the primary aim is not to make profit, it is for a social goal or social aim. We might not see profit either, but in traditional economics, what we're assuming is that firms want to make profit, and profit is just revenue minus cost. Now, if you are doing the second year of the course, you will know that that's a little bit different. There's a bit more to the story than that, but in general, profit is just revenue minus costs. So, whereas before I said demand slopes downwards, here I'm saying supply slopes to the sky normally, and I'm using the word sky because you need to know that supply slopes upwards, so that you don't get it mixed up with demand when you're labeling them in your diagram. So why does it slope upwards? Well, higher price, more chance of making a profit, so firms willing to supply more to the market, more firms willing to supply. And what could affect the amount of profit in a market? So the level of demand is going to determine the price, but that's really quite independent from the supply curve. But the cost of production and the amount of competition in the market are going to determine the amount of profit that you're able to make. And we're going to see some of the factors that determine this supply curve in a second. But let's have a look at what it looks like. So as I said before, supply slopes to the sky. So we've got a supply curve sloping upwards there. And one really important thing to remember, which I've not put on this one, is you need to label your curves. So there we go, supply 1. And we know that demand's going to look a little bit different because demand's going to be downward sloping. We need to label that there. Okay, so changes in price, this one again, we can see that at a relatively low price, we get a low level of quantity supplied. There we go. And a Q at the bottom, Q1. And then as the price increases, we get a bit of a wavy line there. We get a larger amount of quantity supplied. And profit is the reason for this profit motive. There's more chance of making a higher profit. It's still the same product all the way along, and different businesses, yes, they have different costs depending on their level of output, and we go into more detail when we look at average costs and marginal costs and those types of things later on in the course. But generally speaking, the higher the price, the higher the amount of, well, definitely speaking, the higher the price, the higher the amount of profit that you make. So more firms willing to supply more and put more of their factors of production into producing these items. So a change in a non-price factor, though, as before, causes just a shift inwards and outwards of supply. I don't think I've added any animation there, so I'll just draw in another one. So a change in a non-price factor, and we're going to go through these in a second, can cause supply to shift outwards. That's supply shifting outwards. And a change might also cause supply to shift inwards. So this is supply shifting inwards. Now here's my little tip that I give to my students. When you're doing this, do not draw your little arrows. You don't have to draw arrows, but it can sometimes help you recognize what's going on in your diagram. Oh, I've just noticed something I've done a little bit wrong there. Look, label it S2. It should be S3 really, because I've already got an S2 there. But when you're doing your arrows, and you don't need to do arrows, but it can just visually help you see what you've done on the diagram sometimes, don't draw them like this. Because look, it's very confusing if you do it like that, especially for supply, because that arrow looks like it's going down. So you might visually in your mind see that and then think, oh, supply's reduced. It's not, it's moved outwards, it's actually increased. And this arrow looks like it's it's increasing, it looks like it's pointing upwards. So then you might think and look at this one and think, oh, supply's increased. It's not, it's moved inwards. That means it's decreased actually. So always draw this little line for your arrow horizontally, and then you won't get mixed up, because that definitely looks like an increase there, and then this definitely looks like a decrease. So that can just help you in your exam when you're, you know, under stress, where and those are the times where you're likely to make silly little mistakes that maybe you've not made all year, but in an exam you do make them. So what are these non-price factors that can cause these shifts? So before on the demand video I said we had pacifists, and now we're going to have pirates. So changes in production costs, indirect taxes, regulation, amounts of competition, technological change, efficiency / productivity, and subsidies. We can also add weather or seasons to this, but I would have had to have added I could have made the S on subsidies, seasons, and put indirect taxes / subsidies there, or we could have had a pirates with a big S on the end and seasons there, because sometimes weather and seasons can affect your production. If it's crop production, farming, agriculture, that kind of thing, it can affect it. So these are the things really that determine the level of demand. So if I go back where the supply curve is, but changes in these things will also shift the supply curve. So if we have an outward shift, and I'm just going to start by labeling this up. This was S1, this is S2. Let's do my arrows. So it looks like it's increasing. There we go. Outward shift in supply could have been caused by a decrease in production costs, because you can make more with the resources that you have, or you can buy more resources. A decrease or a removal of indirect taxes. Again, that links to production costs. It's decreasing the cost of production. Removal of regulation. Now, regulation is quite a complicated thing, and we'll look at that when we look at government intervention. But generally speaking, removal of regulation means more firms find it easier to enter the industry, so therefore it increases the amount of supply. Amount of competition. So, for example, if barriers to entry decrease, we can have an increase in the number of firms in the industry. Positive technological change. This is going to affect productivity, and therefore will link back to these costs of production. Usually we should be able to produce more with the resources that we have, and then we have the increase in efficiency or productivity. An increase or an addition of a subsidy should decrease the cost of production, again linking back to that top thing there. And those are our pirates. We can't see it very clearly actually because I've made everything red at the beginning, but pirates there. Maybe you could even add like favourable change in the seasons, but for something like a phone, an iPhone maybe, it's not really going to make a difference to the supply. For something that's farmed, it would make a difference to supplies, but you've got to use your discretion there of when it's appropriate. So here we have an increase, sorry, I've got that mixed up, and it's because I've not labelled up my diagram. So here we have a decrease in supply, and it looks like an increase, but only because I've not put these arrows on. Now, as soon as I put those arrows on, it's very, very clear what it looks like. It's a decrease in supply. And this is an inward shift in supply, and this could be caused by, I've just changed around all of these factors: an increase in the cost of production, an increase or an addition of an indirect tax, introduction of regulation, a decrease in the amount of competition. So maybe firms have left the industry for a particular reason, maybe because of this increase in indirect taxation. You know, that'd be a reason why they've left the industry. Negative technological change. Now, this is a bit of a weird one, really, as if, you know, the machines are all going to stop working or something. Sounds like something out of War of the Worlds or something like that. It's much more likely that you have technological change that increases efficiency. A decrease in efficiency and productivity, again, can be linked to technological change, but what could have caused that is a decrease in motivation among the members of staff in an organisation. That could cause the cost of production to increase, and so we can see it's a lot of these are just really linking back. You can link so many of them back to this part, and cost of production have an impact on your profit, so that's why they can an increase in cost of production means less profitable, fewer firms want to be in that industry. Removal of subsidies as well there for our S at the end. So factors which determine the supply of a good or a service, they're these factors here that determine where the supply curve is in the first place, and what determines a shift in the supply curve is a change in any of those factors. So we've got that one done, that one done. Higher prices mean higher profits and provide the incentive to expand production, and the supply curve shows the relationship between price and quantity supplied, and that is upward sloping. We've got a positive correlation there.